On Ryan Moore, I spoke to his coach a lot over the weekend. His name is Tony Denton, and one of the things we talked about was how Moore is well aware that he hasn't lived up to a career as an amateur that included the amateur title, the Western Amateur, 2 pub links, and an NCAA individual title back in 2004. Denton also said that at age 30, Moore is hungrier than ever to win and win a lot. He knows this is a hugely important window at this time of his career, and since the Colonial Tournament, Denton and Moore have been working together 2 weeks out of every month to sharpen his short iron game, using TrackMan to dial in his wedge play. Every practice session begins with Moore hitting 5 balls from 40 yards, then 5 from 50, 60, all the way up to 120 yards, and Denton will then randomly choose yardages between 40 and 120, and Moore will try to hit the exact number, trying to improve an aspect of his game that over the years has ranked well into the hundreds compared to his peers. The work clearly played off in Malaysia, where Moore got up and down from 63 yards to save par just to get into the playoffs with Woodland, and then he stuck his 8-iron approach from the fairway in the playoffs to set up his winning birdie. Ito and Moore's improved fitness, highlighted by 6 a.m. workouts, and Denton and Moore, they're capable of doing a lot more before this season is done.
44 minutes pass there. You go back to the final major championship 2013. Jason Duffner hitting iron shot after iron shot close, including that one there on the 16th hole to give him the cushion he needed to win his first major championship. And Ryan Moore, he wedged his way in regulation, making a very gritty par, and then that in the playoff to win the CIMB Classic. So we talked about the driver, Damon and Notah. Now we're going to talk about wedge play. Wedge play is kind of a multifaceted thing when it comes to the amateur golfer, finding the right wedges, the right gaps between your wedges. But what are some of the fundamentals to hitting good short iron shots?
Well, a couple things, and you saw it in those 2 instances from Jason Duffner and Ryan Moore, is the fact that your tempo and your cadence has to be consistent and it has to be balanced, and that's what you're going to see in great wedge players. You look at Steve Stricker, you look at Ryan Moore, how he performed coming down the stretch, hitting those 2 great shots, one in regulation, one in the playoff. The third shot was a short iron, but obviously what he is working on, and he talked about it, you talked about it with his instructor, is you got to work on the repetition. But one of the things that happens with the amateur with a wedge is that they get too steep. Okay, because it's tough because, well, I hit my wedges heavy all the time. They really fight those kinds of things, and you hit them heavy, they never go the right distance. And so getting the appropriate setup and the appropriate ball position so that the ball's not too far back in the stance. What invariably happens there, that's going to cause 2 things. It's going to cause a really low ball flight, and secondly, it's going to cause the amateurs to get too steep. And when you get too steep with your wedges, the ball actually skids up the face, and you lose distance, versus in your mids and your shorts, when you get it back, you're actually going to pick distance up. And so what you're going to see, and Steve Stricker is a great example. We talk about his dead hands, his very rhythmic motion, and very shallow angle of attack. And that's one thing that Sean Foley and Tiger Woods were working on early in the year. We talked about how he was missing a lot of greens with his short irons and his wedges. He was getting just a little bit too steep on his angle of attack, and you could tell his divots were getting very deep and a little bit too steep. And so the setup is I prefer to have my wedge just a little bit back of center. And what I mean by staying shallow is not doing that, but maintaining your height in your upper body, and just making sure that club goes away slow and low, okay? And then you finish the rotation, and then you go through. The other things that you did notice in those 2 examples that we used from Duffner and Moore is that they continued rotating past impact. Many amateurs want to see the result, or they're like, oh gosh, I'm swinging too hard. Look at the rotation. Look how far left of the target that Jason Duffner's chest is pointed after impact. And that's because they keep rotating past the ball through the impact zone, and that just keeps the acceleration, but also the balance in the movement, and produces a good strike. And so if you can do that, that obviously contributes to consistent wedge play.
Interesting to me that Ryan Moore's coach Troy Denton talked about that was an area of the game that he really struggled in. 40-yard pitches,
right.
50-yard pitches, the 60-yard pitch. He had a 63-yard pitch just to get into that playoff. That yardage frightens me as a high handicapper. That's like a between club shot for me. How tough is it for a pro? Is that a tough shot?
Yeah, the 40 to 60 yard, 65-yard areas are very difficult and challenging for PGA Tour pros. And In fact, some players will actually play away from that distance when laying up on par 5s or figuring out when to punch out if they get into trouble on a par 4. And that's because it's not a comfortable yardage. You can't hit a 3/4 or a full shot. You're going to have to use a combination of technique and a little bit of instinct.